Helldivers, it is here, the massive patch that we have all been waiting for, and in today's video I am going to be going through the full patch notes. There is just so much I can't even explain. We're going to be doing this video in a different way. We're literally just got all of the patch notes on the screen and I'm just going to be reading through them. It's going to be a very long video, so just to warn you, we're just sitting here going through every single thing that has changed, and I hope you guys do enjoy today's video. If this does help you out, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, because, I mean, this is the biggest ever patch notes I've seen for this game. And yeah, so something else, I thought the new war bonds dropping, and it should be with this patch. So I didn't see any of that in the Discord, so just need to double check on that when the game is updated. So, support incoming. We have issued a mega update to address so much stuff. Fixes, balancing, gameplay and more, and visible supply lines are finally here. See the patch notes for the full notes, and please be patient as the massive patch note messages are sent out to all subscribed servers. Mother of Liberty, these notes are huge. Additionally, we have a nice write-up on Steam with more information about these balancing changes. Happy hell diving at everyone. So I will read through this in another video. This video would be about an hour long if I read through all of that. So we're going to be doing it in two different ones. So kicking off with the patch notes. This, guys, is patch version 01.00.400. Here we go. So the overview. So for this patch, some of the major areas of interest are visible supply lines and attack origins in the Galactic War, Strategem weapon, planet and enemy balancing updates, various crash fixes, stability improvements and other updates, invite only lobby creation, and the rightmost option in the lobby settings currently only localized in English, additional languages coming in the next patch. Let's dive straight into this. So the balancing, so goal with stratagem balance changes in this patch. So with this balance changes, we wanted to buff up some of the weaker stratagems to make them more viable and add more possibility for the variety in loadouts. We also changed a few to make them more consistent, but the goal was to keep a similar or higher power level. We are looking into the stratagems more to see if there are any other stratagems that might need buffs or changes to make them more viable. We also want to be better explaining what our goals are with these changes, so please see the linked blog post for more information and we will go through that. So, the AMLS-4X rocket sentry, decrease spread, prioritize larger targets, increase target distance from 75 to 100 m, decrease rockets per salvo from 2 to 1 to get a better ammo economy. Increased explosion radius from 1 to 4. Decreased explosion armor penetration. Explosion can no longer damage heavy armored enemies. The projectile still has enough AP to damage heavily armored targets. Increased projectile range from 200 to 300. The AMG-43 machine gun sentry reduced the cooldown timer from 180 seconds to 120 seconds. The machine gun sentry, the Gatling sentry, the rocket sentry, the autocannon sentry, the mortar sentry, and the EMS mortar sentry, they've increased the durability from 0% to 80%. Okay, that is a big change. The MG-101 HMG, they've increased the rotation speed by 100%, so that's pretty good too. The MD6 anti-personnel minefield, they've increased the explosion damage from 250 to 350. I mean, I thought they were pretty good as they were, but I'm not gonna lie, that's a pretty cool change. The incendiary mines, they've increased the explosion damage from 150 to 210. The orbital Gatling increased fire rate by 25%, increased rounds per salvo from 30 to 60, increased armor penetration, can damage heavily armored enemies, and decreased cooldown from 80 seconds to 70 seconds. The orbital precision strike, they decreased cooldown from 100 seconds to 90 seconds, decreased spawn/cooling time from 4 seconds to 2 seconds. The orbital airburst strike, they decrease cooldown from 120 seconds to 100 seconds. The Eagle rocket pods, While these changes may look like a straight up nerf, that is not the intention. Please see the blog post for more information. Oh, okay. Right. We're going to have to be... This will be in a separate video. Make sure to watch the video coming up next, guys, because we'll go through the blog post. So they improved targeting. They increased the projectile armor penetration. Now does 100% damage to heavily armored enemies instead of 50%. Decreased projectile damage from 600 to 250 to compensate for the improved targeting and the extra damage from the increased armor penetration, and decrease the explosion armor penetration. Explosion can no longer damage heavily armored enemies. The word nerf, but yeah, let's wait till we read through it afterwards. The Eagle Strafing Run, they've increased uses from 3 to 4, and increased armor penetration can now damage heavily armored enemies. The GL-21 grenade launcher increased explosion damage from 350 to 400. The MG-206 heavy machine gun increased projectile damage from 100 to 150. Increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 23% to 33%. Decreased fire rate from 450, 750, 900 to 450, 600, 750. Decreased reload time from 7 seconds to 5.5 seconds. And increased stagger strength. The MG43 machine gun, they've decreased the reload time from 4 seconds to 3.5 seconds and increased the max amount of magazines from 3 to 4. The MG43 machine gun, the Sentry, the Gatling Sentry, and the XO45 Patriot Exo Gatling, they've increased projectile damage from 80 to 90 and increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 7.5 to 25%. The AR-23 Liberator, the Stalwart, and the AR-23 Guard Dog, they've increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 10% to 23%. As for the AR-23C Liberator Concussive, they've increased projectile damage against durable body parts from 23% to 35%. The BR Adjudicator, they've increased the magazine capacity from 25 to 30 and increased the projectile damage against durable body parts from 10% to 20%. Now, I've really thought the BR14 Adjudicator needed a buff, so it could have done maybe a bit more there, but that's not bad. Now, the Tenderizer, the AR61 Tenderizer, another one that needed a buff. They've increased the projectile damage from 60 to 95. They've increased the projectile damage against durable body parts from 10% to 17%. They've decreased ammo capacity from 35 to 30. They've decreased the number of magazines from 10 to 8. And they've increased stagger strength. The Plaz 101 Purifier, they've increased the projectile armor penetration to be the same as the explosion and decreased explosion damage fall off. The CB9 Explosive Crossbow, increased explosion armor penetration to be the same as the projectile, increased demolition strength, can destroy bug holes and bot fabricated buildings, and they added medium penetration tags. The R36 Eruptor increased total damage from 420 to 570 damage per shot. Now, I would have liked to have seen a nicer change to the Eruptor there. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I miss the old Eruptor. I really do feel that they could have reverted it. But by the looks of things, that the main thing that's happened to the Eruptor is that they've done a big damage buff, which means you'll be able to take things down. I'm going to be doing a video later today testing out the new Eruptor to see how good it is. The R63 Diligence increased some projectile damage against durable body parts from 10% to 25%. Some enemies have durable body parts that receive only a portion of the base damage from projectiles. They've updated recoil stance modifiers. We made changes to the recoil stance modifiers to make them more consistent and also reward being prone more. Also, all of them will improve the recoil, and only 2 have been made worse and only by 10%. See the blog post for a more detailed description. So here we go. So removed operator modifier AA defensive, reducing the stratagem slots by 1. We want to look over the operation modifiers in the future. Right now, there are too few of them which become repetitive, and the ones we have do not create variety or promote different playstyles. But now we remove this one because it only encourages the player to bring the best stratagems and does not promote variety. That'd be interesting to see what the response is to that. Disable the retrieve essential personnel defend event mission for the time being. They have disabled it. I know, because I knew they were going to fix it. This is to give the mission the proper attention and care that it deserves, and it is now deemed not fun enough or performing as we want to. Super samples now spawn on difficulty 6. The reason for this change is we feel that their existence on only difficulty 7 forced some players to play the game on a harder difficulty than they wanted to comfortably play on, or we do, however, still want a gating of them, but a less punishing one. The SEAF artillery stratagem no longer blocked by stratagem jammers or iron storms, and now is available after the mission timer ends, and the destroyer leaves close orbit. Enemies in melee range of the gate in the evacuate high value assets mission will now attack more consistently. Added the ability to chat from in-game menus and mission loading screen. Oh, that's pretty good. I like that because I hate when it like cuts you off. Updated some first-person crosshairs to improve the readability. Social stuff. The invite-only lobbies are now supported. As for armors, there's a new armor passive peak physique. 50% melee damage and 30% weapon ergonomics. The planets and hazards. So the spike planet, a spike planet that appears on certain planets has been reworked. No longer causes bleed or stamina drain if hit by the planet explosion or spikes. Now pops 3 times, sending spikes everywhere and dealing increased damage. The fire tornadoes have had their behavior change, and they should no longer feel like they are actively responding to the player movement and should move more randomly. Oh, that's good. Yeah, because they do follow you all the time. While a fire tornado storm takes place, enemy vision is reduced, player vision is unaffected. Okay, that is huge. That is actually huge. Fire tornadoes being moved more random should result in a variety in situations players find themselves in. Tornadoes are significantly less likely to pile up and overlap on extraction points or objectives, and will generally be a bit easier to deal with. I'm so thankful for that. The tremors have had their spawning tweaked to be slightly more random. Tremors have had their size and effect range changed. These changes to result in more situations where enemies away from the player get stunned, as well as reducing how consistently the player has a tremor occur next to them. Visibility. A lot of planets have their fog amounts tweaked to be a bit less harsh and dense to provide less fatigue from constantly fighting on planets with bad visibility. We intend there to be foggy planets with worse visibility, but the balance was a bit off. Desert planets such as Errata Prime, Chort Bay, Hellmire, and similar. Highland planets such as Varia 5, Matter Bay, Oshane, and similar. And then artificial light sources have had their intensity rebalanced and reduced across the board to fix the solutions of the lights being completely blinding to the player. The unexploded hell bomb malfunctioning that can sometimes be found on planets will now explode immediately if hit with strong explosive or heavy weaponry. They will still have the same delay if hit with small arms. Okay, that's pretty good. Johan's just messaged. He's asking for the patch information. We'll get to Johan and give our response to him once we've played. Vegetation that's large enough to slow the player has now has an extra function. When inside the vegetation, Helldivers will be harder to detect, reducing their detection range by enemies. This effect stacks with other detection reducing effects such as nighttime, being crouched or prone, or things like as the scout armor passive. The Iron Storms, they've added a VFX for the Iron Storms. Now, as for the enemies, so the enemies there's an acid effect. The acid effect applied by the hunters, bug mines, now allows you to sprint while under the effect and slows you by 30% instead of 50%. Duration has been increased from 3 seconds to 4 seconds. These changes are intended to make it less punishing for players to be slowed while fighting the Terminids. This allows us to use it in a bit more places without making the experience very punishing. For example, the Bile Spewers. The armored enemy balance, we have toned down the amount of heavily armored enemies like Bile Titans, chargers on higher difficulties, and instead spawn more hordes of smaller enemies. The difference should be quite noticeable, and the amount should be at least 30% less than before during bug breaches. And we have also toned down slightly how many hulks that spawn for the automatons. Our intent is to ease up on the demand of the anti-tank weapons, and by having more of the other enemies give a better incentive for the group to bring stratagems and weapons that take care of hordes. Patrol spawning is now back to how it worked before patch 01.00.300, with some important slight tweaks so that the levels are less empty if you're far away from an important location without an enemy presence, or with an enemy presence. Stunning, so medium and large size enemies now don't get stunned easily. This will not affect the stratagem that stun. This will most likely just affect how easily the pummeler can stun larger enemies. The Terminids, the Bile Spewers, and the Nursing Spewers. Spewers will now get slowed if they lose their legs. Spewer Puke now applies the acid effect, and the Spewer Puke now can only damage Helldivers up to 4 times per second, and the Helldiver cannot take damage multiple times from the same projectile. This should reduce instances where you're instantly killed by it. That's huge. The Bile Titan's head is slightly less durable against weaker anti-tank weapons. It's not a large change, and it will most likely matter for weapons like the Railgun. The Bile Titan's Puke can now only damage a Helldiver 4 times per second, and the Helldiver cannot take damage multiple times from the same projectile. The damage is still very deadly, so running through their Puke is not recommended. Their Puke now also has a bigger spread. The Charger Behemoth is now joining the battle on higher difficulties. It can also take more damage than before. This enables us to spawn fewer charges but still retain the difficulty. As for charges, will now only show bleed out effects from the body if the bleed out state has started. It can still show bleed out effects from the mouth without having started the bleed out state. The automatons, the Hulk Scorcher, the Hulk's flamethrower now does less damage and cannot damage Helldivers more than 4 times per second. In addition, the Helldiver cannot be damaged multiple times by the same flame projectile. This is to make sure you don't get instantly killed. Really like that. The automaton tank, so the tank armor value on the front has been lowered to be the same as the non-vent sections on the rear of the tank. This intent was to initially that it was supposed to be more armored on the front, but the visual language did not show that before. The vents on the back of the tank's turret still has the same armor value as before, but will check for explosion directions correctly now. The damage of exploding automaton jump packs has been reduced by 50%. It will still set you on fire though. Galactic War, introducing supply lines and origins of attacks. Supply lines were previously not shown on the Galactic War map to reduce clutter and made in to improve readability. However, based on the feedback from our community, we have made an implementation showing them on the map. This solution tries to maintain the general readability while still exposing the system to players in the game. You are now also able to see which planet an attack is originated. I knew I was going to say where it's coming from, potentially allowing for the community to stop the attack at its source. And we've also updated the visuals in the sector and planet info pop-ups. As for the fixes, the FAF-14 spear targeting has been reworked and should now function much better. However, it's lost the ability to target automaton spawners. This is not intended and will be fixed in the future. Okay, so it's been fixed, but kind of not completely. It's been kind of broken and fixed at the same time. Intense heat and extreme cold environmental modifiers will now affect the Quasar Cannon's reload speed and will show correctly in the HUD. The reload speed on cold planets minus 2.5 seconds and the reload speed on hot planets is plus 2.5 seconds. The radar pulse that detects enemies on the minimap is now visible. Most of the automaton weapons have now gotten tighter limits to how much the projectile they can shoot can deviate from its weapon's muzzle angle. This means that the situations where Devastators shoot sideways and similar should be fixed. The weapon of the exosuits are now allowed small adjustments in the angle they fire. Oh, there we go. Their projectiles versus their muzzle angle. This should make the weapons more accurate. The ballistic shield now collides with grenades. The unblock button should no longer disappear from the social menu. Block players can no longer join the blockers lobby through the recent players. Fix the bug where enemies killed, missions played, and missions completed stats would not properly be displayed in the armory. And fixed issue where the player can throw unlimited amount of grenades by pressing the quick grenade button right after closing the Strategem menu. Helldiver now also switches to the last active weapon when out of grenades, fixing the issue that when they would be holding a Stratagem ball without the Stratagem menu being open. Fix some text overlap in various locations. The burning effect applied to the player when a combat walker dies is now a normal burn. The intent is that you should be able to escape it alive, but you will be on fire, so hit the ground. The extraction shuttle can no longer take damage, preventing extraction. New high-grade materials directly from the Super Earth R&D have been utilized. On PC, you can now navigate the Super Credits menu with the WASD keys. Fix an issue where sample count in missions were incorrectly displayed. Levels no longer generate with blocked areas, preventing player progression. Your ship bridge is no longer cast in a shadow. Reduced situations where blue stratagems would bounce when placed next to the detector tower. The war bond menu now correctly displays the emotes and victory poses in the thumbnail. The war medal cap is now displayed in the UI. Fix the bug where the Helldivers armor could appear invisible for other players and refined player reporting UI. Fix the issue where Helldivers could be launched into the air if close to a Bile Titan or Factory Strider corpse. Fix for the Factory Strider sometimes spawned an extra model after being destroyed. Reduce situations where Helldivers could spontaneously die while walking into seemingly walkable valleys on some planets. Fix rare issue on Arctic planets where players could spontaneously die close to large bodies of water. Fix Pelican 1 sometimes leaving immediately after any player gets on board. I've had that one a lot. Fix bug where Helldiver could get stuck in the grenade idle state after throwing grenades. Fix superior packing methodology not working for other peers. Recent players list will now include hot joining players. Relaxed disconnection policy for PC players. Fix an issue where previous session player names might not be saved correctly when restarting. Defend event attack origin now virtualized when hovering the planet with the defend event or the attack origin planet, and implemented outlines for previously poorly readable text. And finally, Helldivers, to end off the video, crash fixes. We've got general crash fixes, fix for a crash that could occur when applying wounds to multiple enemies. PlayStation only, which is fixed an issue that would sometimes cause a crash when switching between quality and performance mode. And fixed a crash for when a player leaves after all their railguns have exploded. Fixed a crash that could occur when rejoining a previous session. Fixed a crash that occur when trying to throw a snowball in ADS mode. Fix for potential crash when loadout is being aborted during hot join. And fix for rare crash linked to leaving a session while aiming a weapon. So, Helldivers, that is your full patch today. Make sure to smash that like button, and I will be back with a lot of videos throughout today. Catch you guys then.